Okay, so that's recording now. I'm going to share my screen. This is kind of a document that one I kind of I use this as like a tool for me internally to just kind of understand and have it on paper what the automations and what the intent of it is supposed to be,
Mhm.
because then that allows me to then take the English actual
Yeah,
words
yeah,
and then put it into the automations and such. So
yeah.
let me just bump up the view so that you can see it a little bit. That should be good.
Yeah.
So I do have some questions,
Hmm.
but let me dive into the purpose in and of itself is to promote monthly free events, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Where people sign up on a landing page and then they get a series of emails leading up to the event. Now,
Yeah.
there's obviously some caveats in there, but we'll get to that. The who is basically anybody, right? Anybody can sign up to this. It's not limited to customers. It's just okay.
Hmm.
And then obviously the outcome of this is to get somebody to show up. Is there anything else that you want to come out of this, like a purchase or something of that nature?
No direct purchase because right now the main thing that generates revenue is the big course. So that one is like in a launch sequence every few months.
Hmm.
So there's no product for them to buy in the moment. The other thing, the other outcome would probably be to introduce them to the framework and the general concepts that we are teaching. Yeah, that's why I was also I think mentioning that sometimes we just want to send one or two emails leading up to it that just have the event details. But like if we have the chance and like if we have some articles in our like evergreen stuff that fit great as like preparation or so, we want to throw them into some introducing the general framework.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So that's more of the responsibility of the sequences, not
Mhm.
necessarily some action that the subscriber is taking.
Yeah,
That's kind of
no,
where I was
no
looking
other
for this,
action.
right?
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
no other action.
And then they're not necessarily cases where somebody shouldn't go through this, but there are cases depending on the time at which they sign up, right? So you have anyone can come into this once it's live,
Mhm.
and if it happens early enough, they get a longer sequence. But then certain other things. So if they sign up and it's within a certain number of days, they get a shorter sequence, and then the page lives on in perpetuity. So now people can sign up to it late one.
Yeah,
To have that right.
yeah,
Okay.
perfect. That's exactly the issue.
So a couple of questions on the sequences themselves. The longer sequences, are they always going to be the same number of emails that you want or spanning the same time period?
If it's necessary to do that, then I'm sure we could just set a standard of like, okay, our long sequence will be 5 days or something like that. We haven't done that so far because we are only starting now to implement, like to automate the process. And so far we've done it like on a event by event basis. So depending on the time and available resources, we're doing 3, 4.
Okay.
That could be handled flexibly.
Okay. The the shorter one. So how long is that? Is that more like, hey, we're going live tomorrow and then we're going live today? Is that kind of how just
That
a
would probably be the case. So like if they sign up like enough in advance to get like a full sequence, they get that. And if as soon as like they fall below the threshold of like, let's say it's a 5 email sequence, they sign up 4 days before, then they only get like one email and maybe a reminder on the day before.
right? Okay. Yeah. So I mean, instantaneously they would get that kind of, hey, you signed up kind of thing. But then I think just even leading up to the event. So if the event was tomorrow, I would get an email today to kind of remind me about the event tomorrow. And then tomorrow I
Yeah.
would get another email that's like an hour before or half hour before or something of that nature.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then those that sign up after the event, they're just getting one email to say, "Hey, this event has ended. Go check out our next event." Is that
Probably, yeah. I would probably do something like with a snippet that always has like the current like next live event and like an easy way for them to sign up with one click.
Kurt? Okay, cool. Yeah, because that was going to be my suggestion is just to have a snippet that's included in the sequence for that. So that's great. Um, And then, so just based off of what you sent me over the Loom video, I kind of just documented what tags and what custom fields and sequences that were in there.
Mm,
And then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not really a conversion point, so there's not like a purchase. The only thing that you would maybe want in there, at least as far as this kind of thing goes, is if you want to want to track somebody actually showing up to the live event.
mm, mm.
That's and that depends on the platform and how you're running it and things of that nature. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not. It could be something that you just think about for the future. Um,
Yeah.
but what platform are you running for these kind of things?
You like the video platform that
Yeah.
Zoom. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's Zoom.
Zoom.
Okay. Yeah. So Zoom doesn't really have a nice way to kind of play with that. So I'm just going to leave it
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
um,
That's a different pain point. Maybe we can talk about it in a second whether you have something for that. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, so it's like, it's weird because it's like, Zoom, GoToWebinar is a little bit better, but then they have like Demio, which is natively integrated into ConvertKit, right? So like
Mm,
you have to kind of figure out how to get those attendees
mm,
from whatever platform you're running into ConvertKit. And so
yeah.
if we're going here to try to figure out how to streamline this to be reused every single month,
Mm,
we're trying to eliminate manual processes, right? And
yeah.
so
Exactly.
if you wanted to do it with Zoom, it's only it is only a manual process.
Yeah.
Go to webinar. You can do some Zapier kind of magic stuff to
Mm,
get that to happen. Demio, like I said, integrates naturally into ConvertKit, so that's more
mm, mm,
automated. But
yeah.
all of these tools have different pros and cons for using, right? So um, it's just some food for thought, maybe for the future,
Yeah.
that if
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah. Definitely interesting to think about.
Okay, and then the timing of the automation. So the longer sequence.
Mm.
Well, actually, let's step back even further. When do you release the landing pages for the events? How far in advance of the event?
Ideally, it would probably be like roughly a month.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so yeah, a month to 2 weeks, something in between that. I think like once we have it live and we have a good process, it should be like more towards like three weeks a month. But realistically, right now it's more 7 days to 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so that's and then the sequence, the longer sequence.
Mm.
What time period does that span over?
Mm. I would assume anything between 3 to 5 days.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I'm asking these kind of questions is so that I can have a good idea of what the encompassing timeline is, so
Mm.
that we know
Yeah.
how we're going to manage the dates and pull people forward or
Yeah.
get what they want or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is super interesting.
And then should there be a delay before starting and or leaving?
Mm. Not really. They
Yeah.
would get like the confirmation right away, and then like right off the bat, we would probably send them like, hey, um, it's still like a few days until the event, but you might find this and this interesting.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So there was. Is there anything that I missed or didn't get in the whole kind of
No, I think
requirements
this
kind
is
of.
like a pretty accurate description of what we are trying to do. Like,
Okay, cool.
awesome.
Okay. So the two there's two scenarios that I kind of have in my head of how to approach this, right? One is like that first one that you showed me where it's very date dependent, right? Like where you kind of have to do your own calculations and okay, if we're having it on the event on February 15th, then I got to know that if I have a 5-day sequence, then February 10th, if somebody comes in, I want to be pulled, like you kind of,
Mm,
and then you have to replicate that over and over and over again, right? Like every
yeah.
month. So is that
Yeah.
automated? Not really, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just kind of you have to have a standard operating procedure around how to deploy that, right? So
Yeah.
the other method, which is definitely a little bit more complex to build out and complex to test, could be more automated. And that has essentially two kind of visual automation setups.
Mm,
One is it's very small. It's just setting the subscriber up with certain parameters, right? And
mm,
so when you're setting up the landing page and somebody opts into it, whether it's a ConvertKit native landing page or you're building it on your site and it's completely custom or anything in between, when somebody comes into that form, let's say that you're gathering on the ConvertKit side, that then triggers off this initial kind of setup. So you had like a source field, right? If that source
mm,
field is blank, then let's set it to this event, right? And then
yeah.
that's kind of like, obviously the origin of that person. Then you might have the date, right? Where the date of the event happens, right? And so you store that on the person's record. I think I thought I remember seeing something else too. Um, and then you had like this subscribe to all B thing,
Yeah.
right? And so I kind of, I guess, for my estimation, that's kind of like putting them on the general list, right?
Yeah, it's a whole mess. Like definitely need to tidy up the whole system. That's a different thing, and I'm like would be happy to talk to you also about that, like in summer or something like that when we get to that project. But right now, it's like our workaround to make sure that everyone ends up on
Right.
the main list.
Yeah, so that's fair enough. And so, okay, so that's that. But then you might want to track, which I didn't see, is do people sign up to multiple events of these, right? So
Mm,
you can have like a custom field that
mm,
kind of counts how many of these live events that they attend,
mm,
right?
mm.
So
Yeah.
that's just something else that, some food for thought.
Yeah.
And it's several nodes. It's not long. It just has that one conditional node logic
Mm,
where you're checking the source field, and then at the bottom of that, it actually takes them into what's going to handle the logic around what emails they get, right?
mm,
So the complexities with that is now you only have that initial automation to kind of build every month, right? You can leave the other
mm,
one alone if
mm.
you make those sequences dynamic enough, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about using a snippet for one. You can use a snippet for everything if you need to, right?
Mm,
But that's something food for thought. Or
mm,
if you get a really not sure, like, hey, this longer sequence is going to be 5 days this time, but then in February it's going to be two, then in March it's going to be seven. If it's going to flex like that,
mm.
it you might want to stick with the method that you have now where you're
Yeah.
calculating the dates. That's the only
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
there's those kind of two ways that how I would approach it.
Mm.
You tell me how you feel about which way you want to kind of go, and then we can dive deeper.
Mm, well, I think maybe you have like a different approach for the first one, but if I understood correctly, also from your follow-up email, the problem with that one, like beside the risk of obviously greater potential for human errors, because you need to calculate yourself and set it up every time again, is that people might get pulled out of sequences, right? Or do you have a different idea how to handle that sequence other than like this like pull forward solution that I had?
Well, it's an event, so there's
Yeah.
you have to kind of get everyone to that same day before
Mm.
email, right? No matter
Mm.
where they come in, you kind of need them to get to that same
Mm.
email. So you gotta have to pull people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I was saying before, is that if you know that that first email is kind of like, I mean, not the first email, that first longer sequence is gonna span a week, 7 days.
Mm.
Now
Mm.
you can maybe, it could be 7 days in a row, or it could be two emails, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you know that it's going to be 7 days, then you can kind of work backwards from there, right? So your date of event is, let's
Mm.
say, January 20th, right? Or
Mm.
yeah, whatever, January 20th, and you go in 7 days back. That means if anybody, as long as you register before the 13th, you'll
Yeah.
get the full sequence, right? But if you
Mm.
register on or after the 13th, we're going to drop you
Yeah.
into the smaller sequence, which one is
Yeah.
going to be just getting it on the day before and the day
Yeah.
of, right? You'll get the
Yeah.
confirmation email or whatever instantaneously, but um, we'll just assume that that is taken care of anyway, right? So
Yeah.
there's no real solution to kind of get somebody into that longer
Mm.
sequence and then
Mm.
make sure that they get those emails, like, like
Yeah.
kind of like accordion style, that
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah.
There's no real
Yeah.
way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the second version, like I have the problem, like whenever I hear like of a like simple 80% solution and a complex one that's potentially more interesting, I just need to go for the more complex one. That's the bigger challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could work through that. It's just a matter of making sure that those sequences are dynamic enough so that we can essentially not touch that
Mm. Yeah.
automation. And the only automation that you have is, like, you build out the landing page, and you need to
Yeah.
build that initial configuration, visual
Yeah.
automation, and then you'd be done with
Yeah.
it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I see it. That's how I
Mm.
would do it. Um,
Yeah.
it's up to you if you want me to kind of skeleton out, or if you want to share your screen, and then I could kind of maybe walk you through it. It's totally up to you which way you
Um,
do it.
for me, both works. Do you have any preference what works better for you from like your experience? Because I'm fine with both, like doing it for you, but I also like from just my experience with like telling other people what to do in Notion. I know sometimes it can be a bit frustrating to want to tell them to click this, and then if you point it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
Uh,
let me pull up mine.
mhm.
Let's see where we're going here. I'll pull in my dummy account.
Yeah. But like already this idea of having like two sequences, two different visual automations, I think that's already like a really good point. I was never considering of having like a first visual automation that kind of gets recycled every time.
Yeah, that first one is kind of like that's the developer in me, right? It's like
Yeah,
initializing a class, right? So it's like, okay, I got to set up this object, and then I can
yeah,
pass that through, right? So
yeah, yeah.
uh, that's that's like how my brain works.
Do you have a background in coding, or where you?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I grew up as a Java developer,
Hmm.
like, and Ruby on Rails and that sort of thing.
Oh,
So
awesome.
that
Yeah,
serves me really well in these kind of, scenarios and stuff. So let me,
I can only imagine. I would love to learn more coding, but like all the little the little basics that I know are so useful already.
so let me see. What I'm going to do is kind of pick it up from when somebody opts in, right?
Mhm.
So this is kind of how I would do this. I'd create a blank visual automation, and then like if they got the tag, right?
Mhm.
I would just say like start, initialize. This is just my nomenclature. It doesn't matter really.
Mhm.
Start initialize event February event, right?
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, because I know like I've seen like your video on the driver tag philosophy, but I don't think you explained like your full naming convention. Like start and initialize seem like both doing the same thing to me.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So I have this naming convention, and I think I do actually have a YouTube video, which I'll dig up and I'll
Mm,
see if I can find it for you. Otherwise, I have it in a document. I could send that
yeah.
document over. But basically, really, what I try to always do is the first word here
Mm,
is an action, right? So it's a
mm,
verb in some form or fashion. And then the second one is the noun. What are we doing, right? And then the third, which isn't always here, is some meta information, right? And so
yeah.
right here, because my internal naming, anything with init is usually
Mm,
something that the subscribers never know exist. So it's
mm,
like
mm,
setting up, you know, calculations or something like this where I'm setting a
mm,
couple of subscriber fields in a row or something like that. It's
yeah.
something that I would never, I know that if they've got this tag, then they went through the process kind of thing, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would use, like what you were saying before is, you had source, right? So if source is blank,
Mm.
yes, it's blank, then we want to set the source. Oops.
That was already a big revelation, by the way, from your videos. Like for like I think 2 or 3 months, we were running these set source things without checking first that they are blank.
So everybody in the last one would just get the latest. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So what did we say? This was February's event. So we'll just say February event, right? Whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
And then so from here, one of the things that I wanted to mention to you also that I saw in your Loom video is that you're setting, like if we were to set a custom field here, right? We set a custom field. Um, I forget what you were setting, but um, let's just say we're setting like date of event,
mm.
right? And then it's going to be in that format. So I'll just put the placeholder for now. It's like 2022, I think, and then we'll say February 10th, 10 a.m., right?
Mm,
And then you had like the date pull event,
mm,
right? So, oh, this is what it was. You were setting like a helper that marked early or late or something of that nature.
mm.
Um, Even if you actually, which you probably didn't notice because it flowed anyway, I just wanted to bring the point up, was that even though the date event here happens, right? Let's
Mm.
just say it happened in the past, right? People are automatically, they're not pulled once they get in there. So they'll actually go through this flow. They just won't pause,
Ah, okay.
right? So anything that you do up here
Yeah.
will
Still
still
happens.
happen, right? So
Okay.
just want to be mindful of that. It's not this.
Yeah.
Now, if people are up here, they
Yeah.
can't move past this if this date's in the
Mm-hmm.
future, so they're paused there.
Mm-hmm.
But people
Yeah.
will get all of the
Yeah,
information
because
up there.
the like the meta description sounds like wherever they are in the automation, they will be moved to this.
Right, but I can
Yeah.
actually, so I kind of ran a little bit of a test
Mm-hmm.
before we got on the call here.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna bring over, just because I figured that this would probably,
Ruin a lot in the
well,
automation. Yeah.
I went back and looked, and it actually doesn't ruin anything because you're overriding
Ah,
that further anyway. It's just
okay.
something to be aware of because you could have
Yeah.
unintended consequences, right? So, like, I
Mm-hmm.
just ran this test with a bunch of tags, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started the tag early and then
Mm-hmm.
late, right? So I had two people come in. One
Mm-hmm.
person came in early before that time, and one
Mm-hmm.
person came in after that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, in theory, the person should have the late tag that came in late. Well, this person has both. See, late and early. Right?
Okay.
Oh,
That's
actually, this is the
yeah.
person that was early. Hold on, I'll show you. Early. See, if you look at the
Mm-hmm.
time there, 10:33,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
late is at 10:33,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And
That's
then
unfortunate.
yeah, so just you know,
Mm-hmm.
keep it in mind
Interesting.
when you
Yeah.
use those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if I delete this, so then what I would do here, I would do the date of the event, um, and then what did we say else? The date of the event.
But they don't get the sequences, right? That's the thing. Like, so if there's now if you have now like send a sequence, it's like after set a date, you send like a sequence, and the sequence is set to 3 days. So like 3 emails that happen on 3 consecutive days,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have after that I have this like event happens. So if someone comes in and like the and they are like on email 2, and then the event happens,
Mm-hmm.
then that means they will still get a third email,
Oh
and then they
no,
will move on.
no,
They get
no. They'll
out of
get
that,
pulled
they
out.
get pulled out.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So
And
okay, it pulls them out of sequences, but it doesn't stop like assigning all metadata, all other
correct.
things.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll
That seems like a
flow.
weird interaction.
Well, actually, that's a good question, right? If they come in and there's a sequence there, they actually might get that sequence.
Yeah. If
That's
it
a
behaves like, that's the question, like how it behaves,
yeah. Let me.
whether it's consistent. Because if it executes all the other steps, then it should also execute the sequence steps.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Or
good.
like you at least need to know what happened, like how it
Yeah, because
was.
if they're in the sequence and the thing happens, then they get pulled out and they don't get any more emails. But if
Yeah.
they actually come in after the fact, they're most likely going to get that entire sequence for sure.
Yeah.
I'll double check on that. That's easy enough to test
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
So we kind of have this source, the date of the event, um, and then I think is there anything else that I'm missing here? Wait, let me see. I thought there was.
Um, that was pretty much what we were setting for it. Um, the subscriber always set at the end after the event so that they don't get like the regular emails before.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So then what I would do then is apply one of the driver tags, right? So then I would say
Mm.
start event reminders. Reminders. All right. And so that would go off. Now, if this is, I mean, again, this is making this even less hands-on. Um, if, however, you're building out the automations, you could store this information as hidden fields on a form and pass that into ConvertKit as a subscriber record. And then you would never even have to really replicate this over and over again, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you could think like that too.
Mm.
So let's just give this a name, event, uh, uh, subscriber, event, or fields. We'll just call it fields. We'll be less
Mm.
technical. And then we'll go back into the visual automations again, create another blank one. And then so we got the start, what did I call it? Event? Yeah. Event reminders. So if we're going to say that the sequences themselves are going to be standard, like if for every event you could have 5, a 2, and then, you know, the
Mm.
past one, we'll go off
Mm.
of that assumption, right? So
Mm. Yeah.
what's going to need to happen first is we work backwards, right? So if somebody comes past that event, right? Um, hold on a second. Let me think of this for a second. Actually, there was one thing here. What did it do? We were actually thinking about this, so I might as well show that, right? Event counter,
Mm.
right? So that would just be like the subscriber event counter, the current one, which
Mm.
if it's blank, it'll be 0. And then just do +1. And then that'll always
Mm.
increment anytime.
Mm.
The problem with having those landing pages up and doing it this way is that this date of event, um, oh, well, no, that's right. There could be a collision here. So my thought is that if, let's say you have January's event and somebody comes in, and then February's event, somebody comes in, now they have the date event field,
Mm.
which one's being
Mm.
respected, right?
Mm.
So what's gonna, I feel like, without going too crazy with it, I feel like you're gonna need something like, let me see, that won't work either. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to that. Because as I'm thinking about it in my head,
Mm.
anytime um, we could do a condition. Um, is it a condition? Let's see. We could do this. Right? So date of sign up would actually be So let me dive into this a little bit, my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're storing this would need to be that date of sign up February, right? Because this is February's event. So this would actually set to the time period now. Right, so anytime somebody comes in, this is actually the seconds of epoch time. So
The timestamp, yeah.
so then what happens here is we put a condition here that says date of February sign up is greater than epoch. Let's just say, what did we say the event was? The 15th? 10 o'clock. So let's just say that. Done. Right? So then what happens is then you can send off your sequence. Email the sequence that's late, right? So event late comer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's that little calculation that would need to happen in here so that if somebody happens to trigger the landing page for February's event, they would come in here, but it's March already, or even if it's just an hour after, because that's whatever the business logic you want to put in it. I put an hour after the event start, then yep, it's greater than that number. Boom, we'll send them off the email. So now we don't even have to worry about that latecomer email because that's just going to happen here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they sign up on time
Mm-hmm.
before the event, they'll jump into this, event
Yeah.
reminders, right? Event reminders.
It's not possible to do like calculations and call variables inside the set custom fields, right? So like that, this step that you just did manually, we can't tell it to take date of event and convert it into the timestamp.
Not elegantly,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So that's why I did
Yeah.
this because it's easy enough. It's just a greater than less than kind of thing. So there's no really
Mm,
reason why really to
mm,
complicate it. And that's why I did it
yeah.
in the seconds because that would give me
Yeah.
that greater than less than kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, we could calculate date and kind of have it a little bit more dynamic and things, but what that would add is you would actually have to have like a temporary, I call them variables on
Mm,
subscribers
mm,
to kind of house the temporary variable for a period of
mm,
time so that you could kind of
mm.
do like, and believe me, I have
Yeah.
nodes. I have nodes, and like I saw your node where it's like really long and a lot of liquid and stuff. I have
Yeah.
nodes that go through multiple screens
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can do it. It's just
Yeah.
for something like
Yeah, because
this
it
is
didn't.
how.
Yeah. They didn't execute for me. I don't know what my mistake was, but like when I put the liquid code in there, it just filled the liquid code as the subscriber feed instead of executing the code.
Right, because there was, I mean, I couldn't really make out exactly all of your code there,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you have to remember to, especially when you do like assignments and captures in
mm,
this scenario, you have to
yeah.
then store it back in the subscriber and then use it again. So like
Okay.
it
You can't
becomes
assign variables and reuse them directly inside the
right.
same
Yeah,
node.
that doesn't
Yeah,
work. You kind of have to
yeah. Okay.
sign them back to the
Yeah,
subscriber so that you can then use it's
yeah.
not cool. It's not elegant, right? And
Yeah,
that,
yeah, I get it. Like because I was just testing it in like the test my liquid, and it was rendering perfectly there, and I just
right. Yeah. If you
yeah,
like, and I use Shopify's Jumpstart thing, and like,
yeah,
like it definitely, those
yeah,
toolboxes work great because
yeah,
it's like, oh, the code works. And then when you put it in here, it's what is not, this isn't working, right?
yeah, yeah.
Believe me,
Okay,
there's been many times where I've wrestled, especially with like those kind of things that are needed.
yeah.
And the only reason why I did this here was because
Mm,
you're going to be making one of these every time anyway. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's one
yeah.
additional
No,
step. It saves time. It's easy.
makes sense. It's just like just thinking from the perspective of writing an SOP for someone who does not know so well like how to work with ConvertKit. So if I
Right.
can just tell them to put like into the event date.
Right.
Obviously, I can also tell them just convert the event date into like epoch and fill that. So,
Yeah. And you can
they
just tell
can,
them to
yeah,
go straight to
yeah, yeah,
epochconverter.com and boom.
yeah, yeah.
It's super
Cool.
simple. Um, so then the only thing here is you just want to make sure that that exits out, right? So
Mm.
that they don't
Yeah.
flow
Mm.
down. Um,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like this, right? Like
Mm.
that's all the parameter thing kind of changes. Like for this, you have
Mm.
to change the custom field, and
Mm.
then you just kind of change your date and
Mm.
whatever you want to name that source, and rinse and repeat this same thing every
Yeah.
single month as you set up that
Yeah.
landing page. But then once we get into here, the event reminders, we work backwards, right? And so I'm just gonna do it this way because I want to know that we did that. All right, so event reminders. Oh, all right, let's type. Um, just a little. I don't know that if you know. I get asked this question a lot, so I'll just show you. If you change a name, what did I do? I don't remember what my spelling was. Completed. If you change a name here,
Mm.
it reflects it everywhere throughout the
Yeah.
your system. So
I was hoping it does that. So far, I haven't tested it so far in my head, but I was just fingers
yeah,
crossed.
yeah, because yeah, you definitely.
That would be a mess if.
All right. So there, I'll just show you that. I'll prove it to you right now.
Yeah.
Close that out. Refresh this page. And there. See.
Love it.
And then this is where your kind of like your subscribe all tag or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Will go. Right. So that after that, because that's the end.
Mm.
So then what I do just so that especially when you have multiple events like where to have with the pull downs and stuff, you want to have a
Mm.
final event that pulls everything
Mm.
down. So that's kind of what this tag really does, and that's why the driver philosophy I live by, because it just makes everything nice and clean. Otherwise you might get people like stuck in a branch that you didn't intend or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right before this we would just do completed events. Right, so we know that as soon as somebody falls to this point, they get pulled in here. We do our housekeeping and move on our way, and everybody exits nice and clean.
Mm.
And then the first thing we want to do is we want to calculate back a number of days off of the event,
Mm.
right? So we stored it in event date, right? What was it called? Date of
Date
event.
of event.
Right? And so um, just thinking. So if we do date of action, right, we do subscriber dot date of event. Um, date, converting it first into those seconds
Mm.
there. Then gonna minus, oh geez. So I'm just going to say 8644 plan, right? That's the number of seconds in a day. That's how geeky I am. And then I'm going to minus that. So essentially, we're taking 5 days prior to it. And I'm just going to assume that longer sequence is 5 days. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So now we have that. And then we're going to put it into the format that ConvertKit likes for handling dates that we can use as custom delays. And so, let me see. I forget what that's. I forget what they call it. String. Oh, I forget what he had.
I think I have your YouTube video where you have that somewhere. Can quickly check.
I always just look at it. String time converter. Let's just see. There we go. This is it. Yeah. So we want the double.
I think you're using percent caps y hyphen percent m hyphen percent d.
What is it? Percent
Right,
y.
I send it in the chat.
Okay.
This is what you have in the
Perfect. Thank you.
welcome.
Can never remember those things.
I'm impressed that you can remember the 86,400.
Well, that for me is like, I don't know. That's like hello world, because from my programming days, it's the same thing as like, that 60 seconds are in a minute, 60 minutes are an hour. I just happen to know how many seconds are in a day. So then that's the date of action, right? And so what's going to happen is we're going to essentially set a delay. Oops. Set yeah, date occurs. No, I don't want it like that. What happened here? Oh, I'm sorry. Delay until custom date and then date of action. Right? So now this is going to be totally dependent on that subscriber's delay, right? So let me see. If
Now we start the sequence 5 days prior.
right, so have the email sequence. Let's just call it event reminder long, right? And then let me just think. So that's 5. We actually need 2 of these. Now that I think about it. Because we need to have action. What is this? Date of action 2. And then subscriber. You know what? I'll just go like this. Because, let me see, is that right? Because if somebody comes in here, gets that, is fine until we get to that 2-day window.
Mm.
If that 2-day window occurs while somebody's in here, we need to pull them out and into that 2-day window.
Yeah, I thought like ideally we would check before we send them down the long sequence that they will be able to finish that, to avoid like, because I wasn't sure like how it works in the sequences. You know, like if they, for example, if the long sequence, like the first email is like general login details, and then they get also email 2 and 3 with information, and like on the shorter sequence they will then just get the first email with the information. I was like afraid if I send them the first email completely, and they after day 1 they get pulled out, and then they get pulled into the second sequence where they get sent again that first email, so they have now 2 emails in their inbox that look the same. You know what I mean? That's why
Yes.
why I thought like ideally I want to check in the beginning how many days remaining to event, and then
Right.
like sequence them off into
Yeah, that's how we would
long.
have to do it.
Yeah.
So we could do, yeah, exactly right. We would have to do a days to event type field,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let me just back up a little bit here. They come in, they get the, yeah, we got to calculate the number of days to that event. You know what? I did that on an account once. I'm just gonna go to my screen here.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can find that automation.
Yeah, that's why I have like the problems with what I tried to do with my nice liquid code. Then
Yeah, I do have it. Perfect. Um, right. So this is what I was saying. Right. So I'm glad I actually remembered which account that was. Um, so there's a like a variable. I'm setting like a temporary variable on the subscriber,
mm-hmm.
and I'm actually setting it to right now. So we're actually kind of using that in the other one, but
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of just doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this var now variable, and then
Mm-hmm.
we actually want to set another custom field, days to event. So I'm using subscriber dot date of event subscriber dot var now divided by 36. I'll
Oh, that's how
I'll
you. Okay.
I'll break this down.
And I was wondering how to type divide, like the get a divided.
Yeah, divided by 24, and then we'll round it off.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is doing is it's actually taking the date of the event, which is actually on the subscriber,
Mm-hmm.
and then and it's minusing now, right? Actually, I think we're storing that as the time. So I think we need to filter that as the seconds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we're going to minus what it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we're dividing it by 3600, which
Mm-hmm.
is the number of minutes in a day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then the hours of the day, and we should get a nice round number, 3, 4,
Mm.
5, 6, 7, whatever.
Mm.
So that's that. So now we know the days to event, right? So now we don't
Now we can, yeah.
basically we just go custom field. Oops. What days to event is, well, we'll just do greater than 5 because that's our
Mm.
threshold there.
That was another like ConvertKit quirk that I stumbled upon, that you can't say greater than other custom field, right? Can you?
No,
It kept returning me like string errors, even
right.
though like it should be. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because to be honest with you, this greater than, this
Mm.
was added in.
Mm.
It used to be just has value, is blank, matches, and contains. These
Mm.
operands
Mm.
was a big push for some of us one percenters in ConvertKit because we were like,
Yeah.
this is getting ridiculous of what I need to
Yeah.
do to just have a greater than kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they kind of put it in. If a number exists in this area, then it'll work. But if it's a
Okay.
custom field, the way that the app works is it reads everything as a string. So you would have to
Okay.
actually, you probably could do it
I
if you,
tried to like put the custom field in and then do like one of these liquid operators that should return it as a number,
right,
and it
and it didn't
didn't
work.
work.
Yeah, okay.
No, I tried. Maybe I didn't. I tried it wrong because I'm not. I have no idea how liquid works. I was just googling the stuff
Right.
together because I thought maybe I can change the
Usually
promise,
you could
but
do like a +0 or a multiply 1,
yeah, exactly. I
and
was
that'll,
doing that,
yeah,
but
that didn't work.
no, it
Okay.
refused to take it.
All
Uh,
right. All right. Yeah. So then, yeah, like I said, you always
but this
try
is
to get
the
it to this
yeah.
set.
Mm, that
And
makes sense.
then we could go into the sequence and
Mm,
basically email reminder long, right?
mm.
I don't know why that jumps, so I apologize. And then I'm trying to think if I even need this anymore.
I think this is you only need if you want to have like the delay until the event first. Like if you don't want to start it right away, then you can probably have that at the very beginning and then say, okay,
Right.
wait so and so many days until. But I think now that we calculate, we probably just calculate back all the days and just say, okay, if it's smaller than 2, then just go on the last one right away.
Right. Yeah. So if it's greater than 5, we'll start to send them off. Then if it's less than, so we really only have the 2 sequences. We can actually go down. Date of action.
Maybe you can use it to dynamically have like the reminder send always 1 day prior, right? Like if you
Right. So what I was thinking here is like, so um, let me remove some of this stuff because I'm starting to get a little confused here. Um, right. So what we want to do is actually always send off that date of, right, those 2, right? So
Mhm.
this would be like a 2 email 1 day kind
Yeah,
of sequence. So
yeah,
this
yeah.
is like final call type stuff. So
Mhm.
what happened the day before, and then 24 hours, yeah, or an hour right before the event. But to get people to this point, we actually probably do want this to this
Yeah.
date though, not to that initial date. So date of action 2, the 2-day date of action,
Mhm.
right? This doesn't matter. this won't matter. I don't know why it keeps jumping up to the top like that.
Yeah, that's it on my screen as well. I thought it's how ConvertKit always behaves.
Yeah, it has to do with something when you add a condition in. It jumps back to the
Ah,
conditions. I don't know why it does that.
okay.
But I think that'll actually do it because
I think
so
so too, yeah.
if I'm coming in here, right? So we start the event, then we're going to calculate the days to the event. If it's greater than 5, it's going to come in here. Oh, oh no, because I'm not starting another thing. So it'll spend as much time as it needs to happen in here.
Hmm.
But if it's less than that, we're going to calculate to 2 days prior to that event. We're going to also delay until this so that we can send off this.
Hmm.
But if somebody comes in from 5 days, yeah, they'll complete this, go through here, and just pass through and get the final call.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. I think that's nice.
And
I
then
think the main thing is the that you managed to calculate the days for the event. I didn't get figure out how to do that.
the days to the event, this part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The variable. That makes a lot of sense.
yep. Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
works. I think
yeah.
that would work.
And then you just need to make sure, but that's like nothing for the automation. That's like for the handling. That if you actually have a 5-day sequence, you need to start it 6 days prior because on the last day you send the last call, or like if you that kind of thing. So,
Right,
but
correct.
that's
Yeah,
just like math. Then in the end, that you get
yeah,
your dates straight.
yeah. So you just want to make sure that this number here reflects whatever the full time at which
Yeah,
this thing happens.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that
Oh,
kind of
awesome. Yeah,
simplifies it right there.
so much simpler. So much simpler.
And then the only thing that you really need to do is every time you create a landing page, it's really just creating another one of these.
Hmm.
And they'll automatically go into the event reminders. Obviously test this. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
share both of these with you and then you
yeah,
can go ahead
yeah,
and grab them.
yeah, yeah,
But I think it'll work.
yeah.
I'm trying to think if I see anything where I missed something. Anything with dates, always test. Like run it through yourself. Like I would take this and this is what I usually do with either my own or clients. Like anytime I
Mm,
refactor something that I know
mm,
works,
mm,
and especially with dates, I don't want to fudge the date. Like, you
mm,
could kind of be like, okay, send it every 10 minutes instead of every 10
mm,
days or something like that.
mm.
But
Yeah.
what I try to do is leave the existing one for everyone to go through.
Mm,
And I'm
mm.
going to put me and maybe part of my team through the
Yeah,
new sequence. And I want to
yeah,
make sure that everything kind of lays out right. And then once that
mm,
happens and it works for the actual live production scenario, then I'm
yeah,
like, all right, everybody start using this one now because I know that it
yeah.
works, right?
That makes sense. Yeah. The thing that trips me up the most in ConvertKit, that creates the most mistakes in with these sequences and the timing, is like that by default, like if you create a new sequence, it sends it 1 day after the sequence got started.
Right. Yep.
That's like I always like in my mind, okay, like this happens, so now the sequence happens, and I 1 out of 10 times I forget to
Yeah, you want to
turn it
definitely
down to
change that.
0. Yeah,
And it's not always the case, but I would say 95% of the case, you definitely want to change that to 0 so that it's immediate. But the other thing
yeah,
to be mindful of is when that first email goes out,
mm,
in these kind of cases, right? So let's just play devil's advocate coming, right? So somebody signs up to the event. It's right now 4:10 my time. So somebody comes in 4:10, they get that immediate kind of autoresponder back saying, "Hey, here's the event information. put it on your calendar, that
Mm,
kind of thing. So I come in through here early, right? Because the event doesn't happen
mm,
until, 2 weeks from now. So I would go
mm,
fall into here. I would go through this bit and I would say, yeah, I'm greater. And then I would actually start getting this email, right? So I
mm.
would get the immediate responder, autoresponder, but I would also within a minute or two get another email coming through. So
Yeah,
this might be a scenario where you want a delay of a day to
yeah,
not overwhelm somebody, but then you want to make sure that you alter this, right?
yeah.
So, um, and then to be mindful of if I did this at 11 p.m., but your standard, you know, sequence setting is like 6 a.m.,
Uh,
right?
yeah.
You want to be mindful that, yeah, I got it at 11. If you're setting it to a 1 day delay, then it would
Mm,
actually send out 7 hours later than when I got it.
yeah.
Sometimes,
Uh,
depending on the business logic, you might want to
yeah.
actually tailor that to hours, and then that kind
Mm,
of ignores that initial default send time. So, like, there's
mm,
scenarios where I don't want somebody to get something at 6 a.m., but
yeah.
I'll send it like 24 hours later or
Mm,
12 hours later so that it lands in the inbox. And then you got to kind of start doing your math in the sequence, right?
yeah. 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 That
But
makes sense.
that usually is tailored more around like sales sequences and stuff, which,
Mm,
again, if live events turn into a sales sequence,
yeah.
that sales sequence on the end, you definitely want to kind of map out the sequence so that it lands in the inboxes when you intend it to.
Yeah.
But that's it. I think it'll work. Just
Awesome. I will test it and report back to you.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, let
Yeah.
me know how it works for sure.
Yeah.
Um, what I'll do is I'll grab these shared links. I'll shoot them over to you in an email, and you can go ahead and
Perfect.
grab
Yeah.
them. Um,
Awesome. Yeah.
just be mindful. Like I, you know, if you have custom fields and stuff like that, and tags that are kind of similar to or the same as mine,
Yeah.
let me know, and then I could kind of dummy. I can like add NurtureKit at the end of them or something like that, just so that they
No,
don't
like
mess your stuff up.
it's just looking at them is enough for me. Like
Okay,
if I see it and then I can build it and type it out.
cool, awesome.
Just like you need to have, as I said, right? You need to know how it works, and then you can build it.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
why
that's a,
to be honest with you, just asking those questions for me, like initially
yeah,
those 9 questions, I call it my watertight framework, just
yeah,
so that I can plain English think it out, and then okay, how do I translate? And then it just works better that way.
yeah. That makes so much sense because otherwise, like the brain is all over the place, and it's really hard to get the brain in like the sequential, step by step thinking.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
dates throw everything into a big mess too. So that's always
yeah,
like I'm always like, all right, the end of the day, I'm not doing dates, right? Like this is abnormal for me to work this level with dates at
yeah,
this point in
yeah.
time, but I'm happy to help, and
Okay.
I'll be excited to hear how it all pans out for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is awesome. Definitely will let you know. I had a lot of fun. Like I'm really excited about these kind of things. I love like just I love all the machines in the background and then that's so
Yep.
yeah, awesome to talk to someone who really understands them and can make some magic happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, my pleasure. And yeah, if there's anything I can do, certainly let me know. You know how to get a hold of me.
For sure, I think like in summer, like we'll probably tackle a big ConvertKit overhaul because everything is just duct taped together and needs some overhaul and streamlining.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, an audit. I mean, like you could take those. I'm happy to share that framework too. Like sometimes, like if I think like some wires are crossed with an automation, like somebody's getting multiple emails across multiple
Mm,
automations or something like that, that kind of
yeah,
helps me kind of like, okay, what is this automation doing? What is this automation doing? Oh, you know what?
yeah,
That person shouldn't be getting that because of this reason. And
yeah,
you start to see like tag collisions and things of that nature
yeah,
happening. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. Yeah. Automation. It's fun, it's sexy, everybody wants it, but then once you get into the nitty gritty, you're like, oh my, what mess did I get myself into?
Yeah, particularly if these kind of things, you rarely like start with like a 10,000 foot view and say, okay, like in 12 months, this is how the business needs to look like. That's where I start, like, right, like all these things are bootstrapped, not just like in terms of finance, but also in terms of these automations. So like 3 months down the line, you can't remember like what you thought of this great naming structure in the beginning, because it evolves faster than
Yeah,
than you. And I think you just
it's
need at some point to get someone from external who has a fresh view on things and
yeah.
tell you that these things.
I mean, and that's why some of these documents are helpful, right? Because like you could just name this document whatever automation that you're working through, like monthly events.
Mm,
Okay, now I have a
yeah.
monthly events kind of document, and it might not be like the essential playbook, right? But it'll
Mm,
give you a sense of like, oh yeah, that's what that tag was supposed to do, and that's why I did it
yeah.
this way. And so it's like development and coding, like documentation it's needed, you know. And
Oh yes.
I mean, I've seen some ConvertKit accounts, mine included, at times. It's just like because I do a lot of this kind of sandbox stuff to mess
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, is that a real thing? Am I doing stuff there? Is people getting emails that they shouldn't be getting, and so on and so forth? So, um, yeah, absolutely. Documentation is needed, and because if you're the linchpin to the whole thing and you created it, people coming in and they're like, I don't know what has he got going on here? And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. What sounds like a genius and very obvious solution to you is like someone else.
yeah.
Uh,
And to your point, like you were saying, like what is starting and initialize seem like the same, and yes, they are, but
yeah,
in this context, it's different, right? So,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, cool, awesome,
Perfect.
man.
Then yeah, I hope you have a great rest of the day and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. You as well.
Bye.
But good one.